Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a really special segment where we're going to discuss some grab and go kings. And these two watches, when it comes to grab and go, are definitely ones that I grab. Yes, I do mainly collect and review mechanical wristwatches, but I will say there is a certain charm to, the ease of use and the kind of friendly nature of having a watch that's always telling the right time and is always ready to go. Because as much as I'd like to be prepared for every day, there's definitely times I'm rushing out the door and I have to grab something. So these two options definitely fall within a more premium tier. And I figure that'd be more fun because honestly, a lot of folks, when it comes to their grab and go watch as kind of their backup, typically that falls within the beater range, right? Something a little bit lower cost, maybe a lower cost G-Shock, underneath $200. These are more expensive premium pieces, but I will say they have that same nature, of course, but I think these ones, you do get a little bit more gratification as well. So normally, let's say you're headed out the door. One of the reasons why you might hesitate to grab your grab and go type of watch is because, maybe you have another one that you'd like to talk about more. You would kind of want to be noticed more wearing, right? So, if you are going to a group, to meet up with a bunch of other watch fans and watch lovers, sometimes it is nice to have, those mechanical pieces and the ones that really excite you. Here, I think there's still an equal amount of excitement and story to be told and, chat to be had about just how good these pieces are. And I think that's where they differ from your typical quartz or beater style grab and go watch. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand and take a closer look. Okay guys, now I think many people would really, I don't know, would people cross shop these against each other? I think they're very different, although they are both quite modern, fully loaded and contemporary. They're both, they both have a titanium construction. They are both have the ability to be synced up to essentially perfect time, right? With no variation. The G-Shock will give you quite a few different ways to sync up, whereas the Astron is going to be just one very direct and very reliable GPS signal. I tend to actually sync my G-Shock to my phone for Bluetooth updates, and it works really well. Now, for those of you that aren't huge into this kind of space, let me kind of introduce you to these watches within these categories. We have Seiko, founded back in 1881, and then we have Casio, founded in 1974. Now, Seiko does do a wide range of watches, and their Astron is very key in terms of it being really the first quartz analog watch. And within the Astron, the larger brand, not just the model, the Astron, when it expanded to a brand, that's when they started doing things like being the first to be able to sync to a GPS. Whereas Casio, branching out and creating G-Shock, in its own right is kind of a huge brand on its own. And honestly, the first G-Shock was launched back in 1983, which is, the year I was born, so 40 years ago. And honestly, before G-Shock, watches were generally seen as delicate precision instruments that naturally could and would break if dropped or struck hard enough, right? Like now you have these things that are just kind of built tough and really ready to go and take abuse, not just for, hey, the occasional jar here and there. Like, hey, if you're going to be doing something rough and tumble, they build a watch for that, which is amazing. And the G-Shock brand has built such a strong name for itself internationally. I think that's really great. Astron hasn't as much, although within Japan, Seiko Astron are one of the most sold watches. And this is a model that I got from Japan via Sakura. Now that's another place, right? Price point. This Seiko Astron is almost a $3,000 watch MSRP, $2,950 MSRP, but you can get it for roughly about $1,380 after the currency exchange from Sakura watches. I will leave a link in the description where here with this beautiful G-Shock Virtual Armor limited edition. This has long been sold out, but they went for $16.50 direct. But they do have a lot in common. They both have sapphire, they're both titanium, they're both highly accurate, and they both are not relying too much on, classical watchmaking. These definitely lean more towards kind of futuristic angles and a more contemporary nature, and still being something quite premium. I love the dial on this Astron in terms of the texturing, super fine texturing. Again, Seiko is really known for the dial. But apart from that texture, look at the dial furniture in terms of those indices, huge, thick cuts with bevels and all types of just fantastic finishing all coming together. Where here it's going to be, pretty simple, but you do get like a trick up your sleeve, right? You can light up the screen, and these are just great. They're very, very tough. One's powered by a movement, one's powered by a module, but they're both very, very capable. And for somebody like me who has a, wide array of watches, I mean, I have mechanical watches that are cheaper than these watches, quite a few of them, and these do still find their way onto the wrist, and a lot of it does have to do with the more premium nature. Although this might look very much like a standard G-Shock, some of you might even think it's resin. It's just the coating on this titanium, and I have to say this thing feels extremely premium in the metal. If you ever get a chance to experience one of these, they do have these in steel. The finishing and the execution isn't quite as exact, quite as precise, but they're still quite nice. And you'll also be getting a mineral crystal. If you do want to get sapphire, you are going to have to get a titanium model, which is typically going to be around the same price range, that above $1,500 price range. So, but honestly, this is such a grab and go, just all-time great. I find myself wearing it more than really, even plastic G-Shocks. And again, it's because it's equally as capable, but I also do get that extra layer of the things that I appreciate in traditional watchmaking. Some of those factors do come into play, although this format doesn't depend on it. They still have, great things like these little bevels here that are really nicely done. And even through the DLC coating, you can see there's a matte and then there's a high polished surface. So as you just get that next level, even the beveling around the little windows here, really nice. And then the pass-through holes, something else that just, it just shows a little extra level of effort. The clasp is nothing too exciting, but in terms of, a a G-Shock, this on a bracelet, this is actually, quite up there, right? Milled folding section, really nicely done. Even down to the micro adjust holes, those pins are nice and strong. So very nice taper as well. So aesthetically, I really love this, but then you get into the details, right? Aesthetically, at a glance, yes, it can look like a much cheaper watch. And in terms of the capability that are within this particular module, there are other modules that have very similar specs and capabilities, but in terms of having on time, direct time, on time at all times, it is pretty unbeatable. I just love that. It's a very similar story for this Seiko Astron. I just I wear this, I enjoy it. It has some tricks up its sleeve, even things that I wish some of my higher end watches, to include my Grand Seikos, had, right? It has a toolless micro adjust there where you can just get a little bit more, 3 more clicks of just a little bit of variance in case your wrist swells. And I just love that. And you're still getting fine bevels. This is all titanium, but man, is it finished to such a high standard. It really is quite breathtaking. It still has those signature Seiko undercuts, bevels, complex transitions. Now, you're also even getting a beautifully done ceramic bezel that has all these great facets, almost jewel-like, but still very, very tough. And it has that similar kind of square appeal, right? And it's still a very modestly sized watch, 39 millimeter diameter. Sure, at 39 millimeters, in a square shape, you're going to think it's probably pretty large, but the lug to lug is only 46 millimeters. And this thing is just gorgeous. It has lume, it has that textured dial, so many things that I love. And another great thing that, in terms of tying to why I love mechanical timepieces, is I don't have to change the battery, even though this is quartz, because it's solar powered quartz. So I can worry about maybe the capacitor, 20 years from now. But until then, it's just going to be great, and it's going to be doing everything that it needs to do, and it's going to impress while doing it. So with that said, let's actually get these pieces on the wrist and showcase how they wear. Okay guys, now this isn't a full review. If you want to see the dedicated reviews for these watches, definitely check out my channel history. I'll try to leave links there in the end of the screen, but you can see this just wears absolutely gorgeous, extremely wearable, and it stands out. It pops, it feels quite premium still. And then again, unlike some of those high accuracy quartz Seikos and Grand Seikos, etc., here you're not going to have to worry about swapping out the battery and compromising, the seals in terms of water resistance, adding any additional wear and tear, just for something as simple as swapping out the battery. And I really do appreciate that. Of course, if I do get my wrist a bit too close to the camera, you're gonna get a bit of perspective distortion, but man, does it look good in the details. So what I'll do is I'll lower my wrist and just tighten the frame up here so you guys can get a detailed look while still being able to have a bit of a truer aspect ratio of how this does sit on the wrist, which is very nicely centered. And some of you are trying to pick it apart right now. Oh, where's the misalignment? Yada, yada, yada. Just regurgitating the same jargon. Hey, if you don't like a watch, don't buy it, guys. Just don't spend so much energy online hating on other people's watches that they're actually enjoying. It's just... you don't get a lot of fruits from that labor, just so you know. But getting on to this beast of a watch here, even on my 7.5-inch wrist, which is, it's more round than it is flat. So it's not like I have some huge canvas for large watches. This square G-Shock, it is, let me see at my notes here. Let me make sure I got this. 43 millimeter diameter. Now 43 in a square is going to be quite large, but you can see because of how everything steps down and it doesn't have some big flowing expansive dial. There's just a lot of layers to it, whether you're looking at the little screen or you're looking at the beautifully kind of reworked solar panels there, or that bezel where it's contrasting, right? There's a lot of breaks in the flow there. It helps it wear quite nicely. And yes, it is going to have, integrated lugs that do flare out quite a bit. So if you have a smaller wrist, you might not be ultimately comfortable in this watch. But for the vast majority of folks, you will be absolutely fine in this one. And if you're not, of course, you can always get one that is on a strap, which is going to contour a bit better to your own wrist. But man, this is a beauty. It just wears wonderful. It's not... it is lightweight, yes, but it's not so light that it feels cheap. It still has a level of heft to it that can absolutely be appreciated. Same goes here within the titanium construction of this Astron. And again, yes, these aren't cheap watches, but I will say there are absolutely reasons why they cost what they do. It's not just some made up thing, where they're just, well, I want these to be more expensive, right? Like there's more details and more expensive materials. It's just a whole different class in terms of the level of research and development that goes into these. These are both completely vertically integrated brands that really just do everything in-house. They're trailblazers. Other brands may copy the things and the technologies that these watches really and these brands, between Seiko and Casio, real titans of that Japanese watchmaking space for very different reasons. You think about everything that Casio can do with the Oceanus line. They have Zaratsu polishing as well and complex finishes, but it's definitely more in the vein of quartz and just that kind of more modern and contemporary take on watchmaking. Where Astron is in a similar vein, but it's, again, it's not, at least internationally, isn't one of the main focuses or facets of the Seiko brand. Right now, Seiko's huge into heritage, right? Whether it be Grand Seiko or Seiko itself, there's a lot that goes back and just is helping elevate the brand big picture and long term because of the elevated I'd say the way that people see older Seiko. It's giving newer Seiko more street cred because people are appreciating a lot of those those horological achievements, a lot of those classic designs we're loving to see recreated. So something like this that is very modern, isn't necessarily going to be their main bread and butter and what they're trying to sell to you. But I will say, if you are looking for an absolutely top-notch timepiece, this fits the bill. It just happens to be updated by solar quartz. But I mean, in terms of everything else, you're getting AR coating on there. This thing is just absolutely, there's no there's no shortcuts here. This is absolutely the pinnacle of what this watch should be. It's not being held back because it's inside a different model line. It's not like they said, hey, this isn't a Grand Seiko, so let's ease off on the quality on this. This absolutely has been finished to an extremely high caliber, and you can feel it absolutely, and it does stand up to its European and Swiss mainstream counterparts in terms of its construction. Although I think it's pretty unrivaled when it comes to the capabilities within the movement. Of course, I'd say one of the more mainstream quartz Swiss watches as of late that's been really popular would probably be that Longines that they had the high frequency quartz, and that's cool. They did some new technology in there where it was a not high frequency, sorry. It was a high accuracy quartz where it had some battery saving modes where it would, wouldn't tick as much and it would kind of sleep and rest. So you could still have that really great precision, but not worry about draining your battery prematurely. So I think that's really cool. I would say that's probably in terms of something that stands out as another mainstream option. I think, of course, Tag Heuer recently, started entering the fray when it comes to solar quartz. But I will say that, the things that Tag Heuer, the drawbacks and hangups people have with Tag still carry over, right? Plastic movement holders and just areas where for the money they could be trying just a little bit harder. But it's a totally, in terms of face value watch, it's a great watch, and I wouldn't look down on anybody for wearing one, because people are entitled to like and appreciate and value what they value. But at the end of the day, there's definitely I think objectively more value oriented, more bang per buck that's out there that can still have equal, if not more, heritage in terms of a cleaner brand bloodline than Tag Heuer. So but I do love these pieces very, very much. Let me know what you guys think. Actually, I don't really think there's any point in doing a low light transition or anything like that. You guys can just, this is just, you press a button and the screen lights up, right? So there you have it. And then this one, it's not a crazy loom beast, and if you do want to see the loom, go ahead and just check out the full reviews. I'll leave the links on the end screens. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Whatever are some of your grab and go go-to watches, and what space do you see those in? Are they more grab and go beaters, or do you have anything that's more like within this space where it's kind of a premium grab and go, where you're still quite passionate and excited to probably talk about the watch, depending on who notices it on your wrist or doesn't notice. Let's be honest, people rarely notice our wrist watches, but it is something I know we all do think about, right? And you kind of look forward to, and if you have the opportunity to talk shop with a fellow enthusiast, you want to have something good to talk about, right? So yeah, and then if anybody else out there is a fan of either of these models or variations of them, of course, because the quite limited, but there are still other options that are available today that would still be quite comparable. But anyways, guys, I'm rambling on. You're probably tuning out. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.